Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Kneehill Scoop, Kneehill County's official podcast. I'm your host. My name is Christine, and let's just get right into this. Here's some announcements as of March 27th. So you may have seen this at the latest council meeting, but our ratepayer evenings are coming back in June of this year. The exact dates are to be determined yet, but we will be having one meeting in Huxley and one at Horseshoe Canyon, so that's a little bit different for this year. If you've never attended a ratepayer evening, these are just a really great opportunity for you to come out, meet council, meet our staff, ask your questions, get some information, have a good supper, chat with your neighbors. It's a good time as had by all. So make sure you check our website and our social media for upcoming dates for those meetings. Something to also look for, we are hiring for seasonal. So we have a few of these positions available. If you're looking for some summer work, we have vegetation management, mowing technicians, and also some seasonal support for our customer service. So check our website for more information on that. You may have seen this on social media, but you can nominate a local business for the Heart of Our Community Awards. This is put on by Community Futures Wild Rose, and the campaign is accepting nominations for local businesses who make a difference in the communities of Trochu, Three Hills, Carbon, Rosebud, and Kneehill County. So you can nominate someone by May 30th. The winner receives $1,000 to celebrate their contributions to community. So you can head to our website. There is a link there, or you can go right to the Community Futures Wild Rose website and nominate a deserving business. Also just announced is our scholarship program is now accepting applications for 2025. So what this program does is it supports our rural Kneehill County residents that are enrolled in university, college, or trade school. And 2 scholarships of $2,000 each are awarded each year. So you have to be a rural resident of Kneehill County. And I know this is like where it gets a little bit confusing, but basically you have to be living outside of a town or village. And you must be enrolled in your first year as a full-time student at a recognized post-secondary institution. The way this kind of works, our scholarship recipients are chosen based on 50% is your written essay. And the essay topic for 2025 is: what initiatives do you think a rural municipality like Kneehill County could take to foster youth entrepreneurship and career opportunities within the region? It's very easy to say. I bet it's even easier to write about. So that's 50%. 25% are letters of reference, and then 25% are the contributions to school or community leadership activities and personal achievements that you've taken part of. So really, it's more the mark you make on your community than the marks you get in school. So that makes this program a little bit unique. You have until June 30th, that's a Monday at 4:30 p.m. to apply, but it never hurts to get going now. If you need some more information, it's all on our website, and that's where you'll find the applications as well. I just wanted to briefly mention our council highlights. So following every council meeting, we compile just like a very brief kind of highlight document that covers all the decisions council made at the last meeting. So if you don't have time to kind of sit and watch, or you're too busy to follow along on Twitter, or you can access this document. It's on our website. It's also advertised on social media, and it just gives like a brief overview of what was on the agenda, council's discussion on the item, and then their final decision. So just to stay in the know on what's happening with council, I encourage you to check that out. So we all know them. We've all used them. Chances are you're on one right now. That's right. We're talking about roads. Roads are always a hot topic for rural municipalities. Joining me here to chat about them today, we have 2 mics on the mics. We have Mike Conkin, who's our project supervisor, and Mike Ziehr, our director of infrastructure. Thank you for joining me today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us.
Okay, this always happens on my laneway. I feel like I'm somewhat responsible for them, but what actually causes washboards on the roads?
So washboard is a number of factors. Dry conditions is one of them. Speed obviously is another one.
Yeah.
And then especially at intersections, hard acceleration, braking, weight of traffic, all those things play a factor into washboard being there. And unfortunately, once one little bounce starts, it's that never-ending effect until it's dealt with. So it's one of those hard ones to control completely.
And to fix them, it's just a matter of grading?
So when we're fixing the washboard, usually they'll be in the next rotation, obviously depending on severity. If concern comes in through one of our channels there, we will assess it. And if a grader needs to be moved there sooner than later, the supervisors will make sure that resource is allocated to deal with that problem. So.
Perfect. So you'll be sending them up my laneway.
That is a possibility.
So many spinning tires going along there. Hey?
Yeah, there's a few. And so what's the typical timeline for fixing, like if you see potholes or washboard roads?
Once again, once we're made aware of them, whether that be through the supervisor driving around and checking them or through a ratepayer's concern, we will assess that and get to it in a timely manner. Once again, depends on the severity. Certain washboard areas might just have to wait until the next rotation, where if there's an actual safety concern, where we will be there as soon as possible. It's hard to give exact timelines.
Right. And I'm sure some roads get them a lot more depending on like the heavy traffic and if there's speeders on them, right?
Yeah. Volume of traffic plays a huge factor into that. And
so is there anything you can kind of do to prevent them? Just like slow and steady?
Yeah, slow and steady would definitely help.
Yeah.
For that point, I mean, we are in a pattern here of dry conditions, and that, like Mike mentioned, really compounds the issue. Moisture and maintenance are really the only things that can avoid this from reoccurring, because we will go out and we'll grade a washboard, and you need to cut right into the washboard to actually eliminate it. We see the same issues popping up days after we've gone into a full maintenance, because the soil conditions, the fines that are in the gravel, it just causes that ripple effect that, like Mike said, once it compounds, it just continues to get worse and worse. So the best thing that residents can do is to ease into accelerating from intersections. Also up hills is where we see a lot of issues with washboard, and that's the same thing. Those tires start slipping on that road and start spinning, and that creates that ripple compound that pushes the soil and then expands it out.
Okay, that's good to know. I had no idea that's how it happened. So what are the biggest challenges in maintaining Kneehill County roads year-round?
So some of the biggest challenges we face are weather, whether that be rain delays, dry conditions, during winter months, that'd be wind, drifting, all those things, and just the amount of area that we have to cover while meeting our service deliveries.
Yeah, so much of that is out of your control. Like you can't help if it snows and if it's raining and if the roads get washed out, and right, like you're just really at Mother Nature's whims or mercy, I guess you'd say.
Very, very hit and miss with the weather patterns, and 2 miles down the road can be a completely different environment. So things change in a hurry.
So how do you decide which roads need repairs or upgrades first?
Road repairs are usually brought up through ratepayer concerns or being noticed by one of the operators or supervisor. Those repairs are prioritized, one, for safety, and two, for severity of it. We want to make sure all our roads are open and safe for all users. We assess the problems and set proper crews out to those problems when available, and making sure they're dealt with in a timely manner.
You kind of touched on this already, but if residents do notice like a road washout or bad condition or lots of washboards, how would they let you know?
So they can either call the county office and leave a message there, and that will be passed along, or there's an online submission on our county website that also goes through the channels there, and then that's where a service request would be created, and we can assess that situation from there. So
perfect. So I know we're kind of heading out of this season, but we did have quite a bit of snow this winter. So how does the county prioritize snow removal?
So Kneehill's winter maintenance program is outlined in our policy 13-2 for the paved roads. Those are our priority with our plow trucks, obviously. The higher traffic roads or higher volume traffic roads are plowed first, and then we move on to the lower volume roads after that. The graders, they are sent out once the triggers are met, and then they will plow their divisions. Usually that 3 to 5 days is what it will take for a division to be cleared completely. That still is without going back and cleaning up all the little fine details. There is no set route within those grader divisions. It is just wherever the grader is needed. Like I said earlier, the weather could be very different 4 miles apart, especially in snow and drifting situations. And the priority is to get all our roads open as quick as possible, as safely as possible.
So what's the process for sanding and salting roads in icy conditions?
So sanding and salting is obviously happens on our paved roads and chip sealed roads. Once the plow is made, a minimum of 2 passes, they start applying material, just depending on wind conditions. We don't want to be scraping the material off, so that's why we usually wait till we're on our second pass. So with that being said, sand and salt are a great tool, but they have limitations. If it is too windy, the material will either blow right off the road, or it will start to melt the snow and become a snow trap itself, which is a whole nother hazard.
Mm-hmm.
They also don't work once it's below like minus 25. They kind of quit having the same effect. So there's definitely times that they're needed and beneficial, and then there's also times where sanding the roads is more harmful.
Oh, Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. So the roads that we do sand and salt, if the conditions are right, those are the same ones that we put the road bands on, right? Like our paved chip seal. Those are kind of the ones we'd maintain with sand and salt.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah. And hamlets as well? Or how does it work in hamlets?
Hamlets will be sanded when it's deemed necessary. Try to make sure the roads are safe for the residents in there without over-sanding, just because it does get a little messy. We obviously do our snow removal first in the hamlets, and those plow trucks are out on the highways. So once we have assets available to sand, if it's required, is when we would move into the hamlets. Okay. And we try to do them one pass down each street, make sure that we have proper coverage. So
that makes sense. And I guess if you have too much sand and salt, that's kind of hard on your vehicle too, right?
Hard on the vehicle, hard on your boots, everything.
The car wash bill.
Makes a mess if not done right.
Right. So what would you say the biggest challenge is when dealing with winter road maintenance?
I would say personally the wind and drifting is a huge thing. The wind plays such a factor in winter maintenance of making sure roads are able to be clear and stay clear, where you can have just the lightest skiff of snow, and the drifting that can come from that is just astounding. It is one of the biggest problem, I would say.
Yeah, so hard to control. So moving on to a bit of road construction, what goes into deciding whether a road should be paved, re-graveled, or just maintained as is?
Yeah, awesome question. I mean, there is a lot of different factors that we kind of look at when we determine both road reconstruction, if a road is to be paved. We've kind of gone into a bit of a decision matrix on this as far as looking at the existing conditions. So the road could be in a really good condition and prepped for paving, but then we have no residents around, so there's not a whole benefit in paving that. We look at the traffic counts, we look at future potential development in the area. Condition of the road, like I say, plays a big factor. When we overlaid the Range Road 251 the last few years here, we looked at the proximity to adjacent highways and that sort of thing. Those kind of played into factor as far as where people route their traffic to our roads. We're trying to get them off of the gravel roads as efficiently as possible to put them on the paved roads, because then that's less wear and tear on the gravel there. So there's a whole network strategy around that sort of thing. Graveling, as far as that policy, is every 2 to 7 years. We do an assessment throughout the year, but primarily in the spring after the winter conditions have happened, and just kind of determine, in consultation with the grader operators, the road supervisors, they all determine where our priority is going to be for re-graveling.
Okay, good to know. And are you still looking for gravel? I remember we did that Got Gravel campaign a few years ago, but are you still kind of...
Yes, for sure. Gravel is a finite resource in this province, and the need for it is never going to go away for Kneehill County. So we have a significant resource in Torrington that was extracted a number of years ago. It has a lifespan. Once that has been utilized, we need to make sure that we're planning for the replacement of that, and we have been. So the last couple of years, we've gone with a gravel inventory replacement strategy, looking at different resources, different options for replacing that gravel. We feel like we should be able to provide a recommendation on this in the near future.
Cool. So if someone happens to stumble upon a big gravel reserve in their backyard, they should just let us know.
Oh, definitely. I think we will be. So what you spoke about with the gravel reach out, we did a bit of an advertising campaign the last couple of years. Any residents out there that feel they have gravel, we still encourage you to reach out to our department. We will do an investigation. We may go out. We have taken the track hoe out and dug in and actually confirmed if there is gravel in the area, because we want to limit as far as we can the travel that we have for all of our resources. So they all play into the cost. The amount of overburden or the amount of cover on top of this gravel is really important too. So I will always encourage anyone out there that feels like they have gravel, please reach out to us. We will have that conversation for sure.
Well, I don't have any gravel, but I have plenty of sand if you guys need it.
There you go. Sounds good.
So can you explain the process of actually graveling the roads, like how often it happens and what's involved?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the question. So basically, I mean, I mentioned a little earlier that we have in our policy every 2 to 7 years. That really is contingent on the use of that road. If we're doing it more often than the typical 3-year time frame. Really, what we've done here and what the staff here have done with their innovative processes is commendable. We're always looking for efficiencies in our operations here. I'd say the last 5 years we've really gained ground on that. We have implemented new techniques with our grading, brought in new technologies with our blades. So we actually utilize a carbide blade now, which compared to the old yellow blades, we used to replace those every 4 days, 2 to 4 days.
2 to 4 days, depending on the road condition.
And now these blades are lasting months and months. Maybe they go through 2 sets of blades in a year. So already the time of replacing those blades, the stress on the operator, because they are labor intensive to replace those blades, all these sort of things. That's just one aspect of it. So these new carbide blades stay straight for a very long time. They allow a much sharper crown to be created on the road, which allows water to drain off more efficiently. It also allows us to dig a little bit deeper into that crust of the gravel road, which allows us to actually retrieve gravel that may have been sitting there for the last 10, 15 years and hasn't been exposed. All those kind of play into this factor where we are seeing less and less gravel needing to be applied on these roads over the last 3 years because we are using these techniques to pull that out of the ground and reuse the gravel that we know is already in there. So
that is so neat. I didn't realize you used to change them every, what did you say, 4 days?
Yes.
To twice a year?
Yeah.
That's such a big difference.
And it's because it's such an abrasive act to grade, right? So there's changeable blades on all these graders, and even though it's hardened steel, it still wears down into a bit of a curve within, sometimes within the day, that metal can be worn right down. So these new technologies with this carbide really is a game changer for us.
That's awesome. So what are some of the road projects that we have planned for 2025?
So, as far as the projects here, we've had the design on 4 road reconstruction projects. We really focused this year on safety. So we looked at 4 of our major problem areas within the county, either it's side slope failures or narrow roads. They're actually spread across the county, these 4 projects. So we've got the design done right now and meeting with landowners, and we should have, it'll be a contracted job, so we'll have the tender out fairly soon for construction this year. And they're fairly small in length jobs, but they are important for safety, primarily safety for the traveling public on these ones. The other big one we're going to be doing this year is a reseal coating of Buffalo Jump Road. So that is the east-west seal coat road, Township 344. Yeah, we're going to reseal coat that, basically put a layer of chip and oil on top of that, gravel chips.
Okay.
And that kind of seals out the moisture, seals any of the cracks in that. One of the biggest detriments to a surfaced road is exposure to moisture. So if you start getting moisture entering the subsurface of that's where you get failures. It's usually difficult to stop that once it starts. So it's really preventative maintenance at this point that we're putting this seal coat on so that we're avoiding problems, major issues in the future by doing this minor work now.
Is that similar to what you're doing on the Keevers Lake Road as well?
No, it is not. Completely different products.
Oh, okay.
So Keevers Lake Campground Road there is actually one of our spec or dust control products. It's spec crude oil.
Oh.
So it is not actually, doesn't actually build any stability to the road. It is strictly to control washboard and dust and help prevent those things from happening. So it is still a gravel road. It just has an oil mixture in it that hardens to an extent.
Yeah.
And also that product will soften with heat and vehicles on it. So it's very malleable at the same time. As it might look like pavement, but it is very far from pavement.
Okay. And actually, that's a perfect segue into talking about dust control. So you kind of mentioned it already, but what products or methods are used to keep dust down on our gravel roads?
So for dust control products, we have 2 that we utilize in-house at Kneehill County. One would be calcium. That is a method where we go and blade in front of a resident's house. We will apply water, then a calcium, blade the road again, water and calcium on top. That would be a full application method, as well as we'd gravel it beforehand if needed. There has to be an appropriate amount of material there to make that work. Then spec crude would be our second product, and that's like what I was saying. It's that oil product. It looks like pavement. It's not pavement. It is strictly to control dust and washboard, and that is still very malleable and stuff in the heat, especially in big trucks turning on it, tractors, everything. It's a great product for controlling dust, not for turning and twisting on, but
right.
it works. So.
And the spec crude typically lasts a lot longer than the calcium.
Yes, so our specs, it very greatly depends on where either product is applied and weather conditions around those products and use of those products, volume on the road for traffic. So spec, ideally, you would see a minimum a 2-year thing. No guarantees on that, obviously, depending on what's going on. And then we've seen them last upwards of 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Where other ones are 2 or 3 years. Benefit to spec is we can potentially rip and relay it if it's starting to get into poor condition, depending on the amount of oil residue left in it. The road supervisor can make that determination with the grader operators to go rip it up and relay it, and sometimes it packs back in for a year. It's definitely not when it's first applied, but there's still that dust control in there. So
then does it kind of change the road maintenance if you do have dust control out front? Does it change like grading and that kind of thing?
So with calcium, the graders will just pick calcium or spec. Graders will just blade up to it. Calcium's a little easier on the maintenance side of things, where if it is deemed that it's a hazard with potholes and stuff, the road supervisor will get in contact with the adjacent property that's controlling dust for and let them know that we're going to blade through it to eliminate those hazards. Spec crude, it is patched with a cold mix, so it does have a little bit of increased maintenance depending on the quality of that spec. Usually we go around twice a year at minimum. And then obviously as potholes show up and concerns are brought to our attention, we deal with those and send a crew out to make sure they're patched and lasting as long as possible. So
awesome. And that usually comes up in May. Is that when we put out our dust control applications?
So actually every year we reach out to our suppliers and get pricing in March for that. And then it's a council decision every year. We bring it forward to them for setting their rates every year. We have done quite a bit of analysis the last few years here, trying to fine tune those calculations to make sure that we're providing close to a full cost recovery on those.
So just stay tuned for that. You'll see that on social media, and we'll be advertising that in the newspaper and everything once dust control is available. So we did kind of talk about this a little bit, but how do heavy trucks and farm equipment impact road conditions?
Definitely. Any larger traffic affects the road network, the road structure, more than passenger vehicles. We're well aware that the industry in the area, both agriculture and energy, they need these roads to make sure that they can provide appropriate services. So we look at making sure primarily that we can keep these roads open, keep these roads safe. A few different things. So if it's a banned road, there actually is an option for an agriculture industry. If they're moving an ag commodity, they can actually apply to us to get an exemption on that. If basically landlocked, if there's no other way of getting out of their site or even from field to field, if they need to do this, definitely contact the county. We can look at that and likely grant an exemption on making sure that you can move we're trying not to hinder any of the industries in here while still protecting our roads and the county's roads.
Right, and those road bans are still in effect as of right now. Did that change fairly soon, or just kind of like keep an eye on it and see?
Yeah, typically it's, what we're really looking at is the frost coming out of the ground. So the frost coming out, the frost heaves, the freezing melting right now, that's what really affects these roads. So to keep the heavier traffic limited on them, we typically see these bans come off in May. So again, weather condition, if we have really hot weather coming up earlier than normal, we may advance that. We try and give the public as much notice as possible. But if we need to put a ban on earlier than normal, the protection of the road is paramount.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's something most people don't realize about maintaining rural roads?
something most people don't realize about maintenance of rural roads is the amount of them. So Kneehill County has approximately 1,900 kilometers of graveled road that we maintain, and make 2,400 kilometers of road in total, including chip sealed, dirt, gravel. So it seems easy in theory to make sure all those roads are in the same condition all the time, but it's definitely a very difficult process to make sure that we're getting around to all those roads and making sure they're all up to snuff and taken care of.
So we really do rely a little bit on people letting us know about problems.
Absolutely. We really encourage anybody, not just ratepayers, to call in or go online and make sure they're letting us know if there's a concern out there that we haven't noticed yet. There's a lot of miles out there that we need to cover, and it takes a lot of eyes on that to make sure it's done safely. So
if you ever see a problem, you can use our report a concern form on the website, or just give us a call at 403-443-5541. And so, yes, Mike. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that, like Mike says, call us and we document it. We actually put it into a work order system. So we're regardless of how it comes to us, phone calls, the online form, we encourage people to use those medias because we actually take that data. We track it. We assign it to repairs. We can go back and actually analyze if there's been a number of repairs in the same area. Maybe we need to look a little deeper as to the problem behind that. Or maybe it's even on a construction program in the future because there's been so many issues with drifting in this one spot. Maybe we redesign the road to move that. So we really encourage the public to reach out to us whenever they see a concern like that. And that's what helps us make the roads better for everybody.
And then so the other way around is how do we kind of keep our residents informed about road work and detours?
I think we're really cognizant of communication here at the county. We want to make sure that we're not surprising any of the residents with any of the work. Mm-hmm. If we're doing something to the best of our abilities, we hope that we can communicate that out prior to that work. So we do that through a few different ways. Social media and our website are definitely one method. We also look at, even if it's an individual, reach out to a resident. If we're doing some tree trimming in front of their, or brushing in front of their place, we normally go and knock on doors or give them a phone call. And we try and do that as much as we can, knowing that there's limitations. We can't reach out to everyone if it's bare land. I mean, there's some restrictions in that, but we have message boards that we try and put up before certain projects. We really just want to communicate to the public as much as we can to keep that open line of communication back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep everyone as informed as we can.
And we do try to include, like, if we know there's road projects coming up, that'll often be in our ratepayer newsletter, just to kind of give the public a heads up. We also do have on our website, on our road ban page, you can sign up to be notified of any road closures. The only problem there is that it's not like specific to your area, so you'll be notified of any road closure in the county, but that is one method that we also have. Okay, awesome. I think that's a good place to wrap it up today. So I just want to thank you, Mikes, for being on the mics. I've been waiting all month to say that.
Oh, so much fun. And just so you know, it's not a prerequisite to work at the county. You don't have to be named Mike necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. Yeah. Awesome. So thanks again for being with us today and for tuning in. And next up on the podcast, we have emergency management. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask our emergency management or our protective services team, make sure you head over to our website on our podcast page. There's a spot there where you can fill in any questions you have, and we'll make sure to include them in our next podcast, which should be happening end of April-ish. So make sure you tune in.